welcome to The Zest, the official podcast of Orange Coast Magazine. Today's guest is a cooking show host on The Today Show, a cookbook author, and the creator of the food blog Dada Eats, where she creates recipes from everything, including healthy pancake bread to masala mac and cheese. Thank you so much for being here, Samah Dada.
Thank you, Chelsea. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. We featured you in our Orange Coast Magazine's November issue, and your story is so incredibly interesting, and you just make really unique recipes. And I've been so excited to get to talk with you.
Thank you so much. That was such a treat also, by the way. I feel like I've been seeing that magazine just growing up in Orange County. So it was very surreal and fun. I got a lot of random calls and texts from people I hadn't spoken to in years, and their moms. So I loved that for me.
That's so cool. Oh, that makes me so happy. But so speaking of, you grew up in Newport Beach, but you went to high school in two different countries?
Yeah, so we had a kind of interesting upbringing experience. My parents were like, we're going to make her resilient. I grew up in Newport Beach in Orange County. I went to East Bluff Elementary School. I went to Harbor View. Then I went to CDM. And then halfway through seventh grade, I literally just started at CDM. My parents were like, well, we're going to move to London. So we ended up moving to London for 4 years. Which at first, that's such a formative time, like seventh grade. Like I was still rocking like my simultaneous braces and glasses. Like it's not a time, it's not like the best time to be that, alive. Yeah. Anyway, it was great though, because I feel like London was so transformative for my palate and my experiences as just like a young adult. I experienced so many different types of foods that I had never really encountered in Orange County, and that really informed my experience. But yeah, it was definitely a time for sure.
I can imagine. Like my husband moved from Downey to Huntington Beach his junior year of high school, and that was a lot. And that was only 1 year. So like seventh grade that's a lot.
It was a lot. But you know what? It's one of those things where you look back and you're like, wow, that actually like really happened for a reason, which is so many things in life, but it was a really amazing opportunity for sure.
What were some of the foods in London that were new for you?
Well, you know what? There's a really big Indian population there. And, growing up in Orange County, at the time, there weren't as many Indian spots as there are now. So being exposed to like incredible Indian food, amazing Lebanese food, I think it's such a diverse population there that I think that really informs the type of food that is present in London and Greater London. So yeah, those were definitely some of my favorites. And I think also, which is really nice, the proximity to Europe made it so easy to travel. You hop on a train and you're in like Paris in 2 hours. Like that's crazy. And that's something that you don't really experience in many other places. So that was really lucky as well.
That's amazing. And I read that you used to cook with your mom a lot when you were growing up.
Yeah, my mom is such a great cook, and she is just the type of person where she'll cook something and she'll never know like how she kind of did it, because she just throws stuff in and just goes by her taste. We say like andaz in Hindi. And I was always very curious watching her in the kitchen. I come from a family of really amazing cooks. My grandma was an incredible cook. My aunt, an incredible cook. She had a restaurant in Australia. It's definitely in my blood. And yeah, I just was really interested by my mom's style of cooking. It was never precise. She never measured anything. She like literally didn't own a measuring cup until I started baking. And I was like, girl, we need to get some measuring cups up in here. But yeah, I feel very inspired, especially now, by my heritage and the food of my heritage, because I think growing up, you always try to move away from the things that make you feel different and like just kind of an outsider. So I think it's cool that now I've sort of traversed back to a place where I'm really proud of who I am, where I come from, and food has been such an amazing medium for that.
That's amazing. I can't imagine cooking without measuring cups or anything like that.
I know, she's amazing.
Are you able to do that now? Like without any like...
Kind of, yeah, I am. Sometimes I feel like when I'm testing recipes or developing recipes, it's really like a backwards process. So I will create something and be like, oh shoot, I need to like write this down so I can replicate it. But I've got my notes tab on my phone is wild. Like if I lose that, my career is over. It really is.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
I need a better system.
No, I mean, that sounds like a great, I'm all the same way with my notes app. I need it so bad.
Oh, it's treacherous in there.
Yeah. I'm like, good thing I don't remember my Apple password, but like,
yeah, exactly.
Went down. Yeah. But you went to UC Berkeley in 2012 and you majored in media studies with a minor in public policy. what made you want to choose the college and the major?
Yeah, I did do that. You know, it's interesting because I was like that kid who I was like really excited to get to college. And also I was worried about it from like 8th grade, like a psycho child.
So
I'm like,
cute.
enjoy your life, Samah. Like, you'll be okay. But I finally, you know, I was really deciding between UCLA and Berkeley. I wanted to stay in California, and I don't know. I stepped onto the Berkeley campus and I was like, this vibe just feels really right. I love the proximity to San Francisco, and I wanted to stay in California, but I liked the idea of going a little bit further from home and just having a different experience. And what I learned too is that just San Francisco has an incredible food scene as well. And that was really formative for my career as well. Just, I think, you know, I had an idea that I wanted to go into television. I just didn't really know what it was going to be. I thought I was going to, you know, be an entertainment reporter or something like that. So I just majored in media studies thinking that, okay, I can kind of find my broadcast journalism niche somehow there. But it ended up working out in like a way, just a completely different way, which it always does. So
yeah, so cool. The way it worked out is amazing.
Thank
But
you.
so speaking of after your junior year, you went to New York and you had an internship at CNN. What was that internship? What did it encompass?
Yeah. So at that point, this was my junior year of Berkeley, and I was, you know, really fascinated by television, like I said, and I wanted to work in TV. And I applied to this internship at CNN, and I got it. It was really more in digital media and social media, which was just a really great experience. But more than the internship, which was amazing because it exposed me to different parts of television production, and it was really expansive and great, and I met a lot of cool people. But it was just being in New York that kind of changed my life, to be honest, because I went there for, I don't know how long the internship was. I don't remember, like maybe a few months throughout. I can't even, like, I'm like, what was it? I don't know. And I just spent my whole time when I was not at work eating. I just ate everything. It was crazy. I think I just fell in love with the food landscape of New York. And it was also at that time, you know, when food Instagrams were not a thing. So I actually started Dada Eats that summer, inspired by all the food I was eating in New York. And I started it as a hobby because my food pictures were just fully taking up my camera roll. I was like, I need to do something with this. And I decided to put it on Instagram like any normal person would. But, you know, like I said, at that time, it was kind of weird to have a separate food account. Like now it's like weird if you don't.
Even remember back. That's crazy.
Yeah. But it was the time that, you know, there was a lot of like really like ooey gooey food shots. And yeah, it was definitely a rise in restaurants and looking up online, like where you're going to go to eat and the best restaurants in New York and all that stuff. And I was really taken by it. And I knew I was going to live there one day. And I think the internship was definitely a nice way to kind of introduce me to the scene for sure.
Wow. Was this the era of the Cronut?
This was.
Okay. Cause that was New York, right? Where it came out?
Yeah. It was definitely that time. You're right. Where the food was it was just a lot of trendy items that you had to like wait in line to get. And, yeah, it was an interesting time to be online. It definitely was not as saturated as it is now, but yeah, I just started it as a hobby and I didn't expect it to be anything else.
That's so wild. What are the odds? That's so cool. So you graduated college a semester early. You were on the dean's list and the honor roll, which is so impressive.
Thank you.
I was on LinkedIn. I was like, dang, that's impressive.
I was like, how did you know that? Someone did her research.
Yeah.
I love that.
But and then afterwards you did a solo trip to Europe. And I've been to Europe a few times. I've never been by myself. I've taken like maybe one train and one plane alone, and my anxiety was just like through the roof. So I also find it incredibly impressive that you went alone. And how old were you at this point? Like 20?
Thank you. Yeah, I was really young. I do not know how my parents let me do that, because they're very like, they were protective of me growing up. But then I think once I got to college, they're like, whatever. Like, do your thing. Yeah, I graduated a semester early. I felt very ready to be out in the real world, says like no one ever. I was just excited to work. I didn't have a job at that point. I just felt like, you know what, it's time for me to leave. I actually didn't study abroad. I felt like, I was so lucky to have that experience living in London as a high schooler that I was like, you know what, I just want to stay and finish up school. And I didn't know that I had finished my credits, which I know sounds like such a like, oh, like good for you. Like you didn't know you could, but I really didn't know. And so I went to the, whatever the student office was, and they're like, oh, you're like kind of done. Like you can leave if you want, like you can graduate early. So I was like, okay, that's like an interesting universe sign. So I ended up graduating early. I applied to one job before I left on my trip, which was the NBC Page program, which, if listeners don't know, the ins and outs of it, it's basically a very like prestigious, it's been around for a really long time, program within NBC where you essentially work the NBC studio tour, you work audience services for Saturday Night Live, Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, and you work kind of in rotations throughout the building. And I honestly didn't know if I was going to get the job or not. It was really competitive, and I was just like, we'll see what happens. Applied to it. I went to travel for a month by myself, which you should definitely travel by yourself.
I know, now I'm like, maybe I should put that on my list.
You really should. I think everybody should safely and like do your research and know where you're going to go. And it's also great if you know people in the places you're going. But I think it's really empowering, especially as a woman, to have that experience because I don't know. I think it was cool to just be able to do whatever I wanted to do, not like wait for anyone, not like I had really only traveled with my family too. So it wasn't like they're like a burden to travel with, but it felt really like you're exploring yourself. And it's very challenging to eat by yourself in places that you don't know. Like I love that. I actually recently just did a solo trip to Copenhagen in October as well. So I love traveling by myself. Anyway, I don't know what I was saying, but
the Page program.
Yes. So I applied to, thank you. This is why you're hosting. So I applied to the Page program. I traveled for a month. I found out that I actually got the job when I was in France, and I moved to New York in 10 days and I started my job as a page. I was, I think, 22 at the time.
That's amazing. So
you're 21. Yeah, you're right. 21.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. That's so young.
Yeah, I think.
So you flew from France back to California and then back to New York in 10 days?
Yeah.
Wow. That's so much?
Yeah, it was a lot. And I also had to find an apartment, and I signed a lease like sight unseen. I had no choice. And I think it was, that was probably one of the craziest things that I had done. And I also, which now is so crazy to think about because my whole community is there now, but I had no friends in New York. I didn't know anyone there. So I was also lucky because the Page program, you're with 15 other people in the cohort. So you have other peers, but it was definitely interesting. I don't know why I do this, but I really feel like I just kind of throw myself into situations where I like feeling uncomfortable and I like pushing myself. And I think everyone should do that to grow. But I started doing that young. I don't know what's wrong with me.
No, that's such a great to have.
Thank you.
I mean, like just looking at your career, like where it led you, that's amazing. But so what was your Instagram looking like at this point in time?
So at this point, that's a great question. I had a really good mix of restaurants that I was eating at and recipes that I was creating in my at college. And then also when I was traveling, I was taking photos of food that I was eating abroad. I also love that. I love traveling and eating through a city or a place. But when I moved to New York, it was the first time that I had my own kitchen, and I really could experiment with just the way that I cook. And I think it was really at Berkeley where I became very conscious of my health and the ingredients that I was putting into my body. And I remember there being a Berkeley student food collective that had all of these really what you would expect, really typical crunchy granola snacks and things. But it really exposed me to okay, I don't know. I felt like I ran up against an all or nothing mentality online at that time, which was, okay, so if I'm not healthy, or if I'm healthy, can I not have a cookie? I just felt like it was, there was this kind of, nothing felt very balanced. And I, being conscious of my health, I also love cookies because you have to have them. Like it's a non-negotiable for me. So I was like, how can I create recipes in a way where I can have my cake and eat it too, and feel good. And also I felt like I was also experiencing a lot of friends in my page class that had a lot of dietary restrictions. So like I had a couple friends who were gluten-free or dairy-free, and it was really challenging and fun to start, developing recipes in that way. But that's sort of where all of this kind of came from. A lot of the recipes that I make are very minimal ingredients, they're healthier. And not to say that I don't really like subscribe to like the healthy this, healthy that. I don't like labels per se, but I think I always like pairing my recipes and my ingredients back to the most basic, minimal possible. Because I think more people can have it. It's very inclusive for a lot of different types of people, and you feel good eating it too.
Yeah, definitely. I'm lactose intolerant, so I usually just take Lactaid with me everywhere because it's so hard to find a recipe that's like dairy free.
It is. Yeah. It is. Well, now you got me. So all of my recipes are dairy free. So.
That's amazing. Like what substitutes do you tend to use?
So for butter, so for butter, I'll use coconut oil. I really like coconut oil.
Really?
Or I'll use, or there's a lot of really great vegan butters on the market now that aren't like a bunch of crazy ingredients, because I really look for things I can pronounce. So if I'm not like super precious about it. Like I'm not going to freak out if there's something that like, I'm like, oh, like that's not great. But I'm really conscious of it. And I think that it's important to know like what you're eating, where your food is coming from. I think a lot of people don't know, where their food is coming from or what they're eating, or it's a lot of processed things. So that was also a thing for me too, where I was like, it's cool to be able to create recipes and dishes that are very minimal, not processed, but still taste great.
Yeah. I literally just found out that oat milk has seed oils in it. I didn't know.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It's really not great. It's not as great as people, think it is. And there's a lot of amazing ones on the market, and nut milks or plant milks on the market that are very minimal, that are just like water, cashews, salt, So yeah, I think there's a lot of alternatives now, which is also great. And by the way, it wasn't really that wasn't the case when I started baking this way. I started using almond and coconut flour in like 2016. It was very weird. And, one of my most asked questions at that time was like, what is almond flour? What is coconut flour? Now you can get it at Trader Joe's. So it's really come a long way,
Wow. So was it really hard to source those ingredients when you were starting out?
I found a lot of things at like health food stores or like specialty grocery stores. So I think it was not as accessible, but it was definitely something that I was trying to educate my audience on. And there weren't a ton of people cooking that way or baking that way at the time. So it was cool to have something that was, I don't know, I kind of created that niche for myself where it was like, okay, this is sort of the type of like plant-based or just conscious cooking that I'm doing. That, was sort of unique, but now it's very accessible. And I think a lot more people have caught on to sort of this way of cooking and eating.
Yeah. So you ended up being promoted to a production assistant. Is that the correct term, promoted for that?
Yeah. So I did the PACE program, which is a year. And again, like I was giving like studio tours to like 4 tourist groups a week, like 6 days a week. It was a very grueling, but amazing job. It was like one of my favorite experiences I've ever had. And I got a job at the Today Show as a production assistant, and really you can't go lower than a page. And the only thing higher is a production assistant. So I did both and I loved them both. It was really just amazing. And I apart from the hours, which were kind of wild, I woke up at 3, went to work at 4, and then I did my shift, came home at 2, and then I would cook and bake for Dada Eats and then go to sleep at 8 and then wake up and do it again. So that was sort of my routine as a PA.
How many days a week were you doing that? 5 days or?
5 days, and sometimes Saturday as well. So I would do 5 to 6 days. Yeah, we had, I think there were 3 or 4 PAs at the time. So we would take turns on the Saturday shift. But yeah, it was definitely, I didn't have a life, but you know what? I have no complaints about it whatsoever. I worked with the best people. Everyone there was so nice and kind, and it was such an experience. Like, I think you can't do that job unless this is maybe this is not the case for everybody, but for me, I could not do that job unless I liked the people and I felt like I was connected to them or they were my family in some way, because they're really ungodly hours and you're really drained and you're really tired, and it's a tough routine, but you know, it makes it worth it when you're coming to work to people that you actually like, you know?
Yeah, definitely. At what point did the producers start noticing your Instagram?
Yeah, so I was just kind of doing my thing, to be honest. I really loved cooking and baking. It was totally a hobby. Obviously, I think there was a part of me that was like, maybe one day, like I could be on TV doing like whatever it was. And I think there was some level of, I don't even think I registered that I could do it with food. Like it wasn't even, I was 22. Like I was like, no one cares about like what I'm doing. But yeah, I mean, after like about a year doing that job, I never pitched myself. I didn't, you know, ask to be on the show. I think that may seem like what would have normally happened, but really one day, like the producers like started talking to me in the control room, looking at my blog, and they were like, "Oh, this is like, like why aren't you on the show as a guest?" And I like, obviously being very young and very just happy to be there, I was like, "Oh, I mean, seems like a you call," you know? And yeah, and then they ended up booking me on the show as a guest. I did 6 segments that first year. And then the next year I signed a book deal, and I've done 3 shows with them since. So it's been really incredible, and they really lifted me up at that time. So I'm really grateful. And I also worked really hard, and I really knew that I had this passion that was just, I couldn't wait to do it at home, but I also couldn't wait to go to my job in the morning. So it was really, I'm really grateful for that kind of opportunity. And yeah, I like have a zest for like work and life. So I think that, I get the zest.
I know. I love it.
That was totally on purpose. Yeah, but I feel really grateful. And yeah, it was crazy. I couldn't believe it because, you know, I think there was also a part of me that was like, okay, like if I want to, you know, be a broadcast or news reporter or whatever, like I'm gonna have to go to a small town and report, you know, on whatever the local news is. And I was in New York. I was like working in like broadcast, like national TV. I just couldn't get myself to leave. I just loved it so much. So luckily it worked out in a way where I didn't have to do that.
Yeah. What was your first segment or guest appearance?
My first segment I did like a surprise. So like at the time, like I was saying earlier, these types of ingredients that I was cooking and baking with were a little bit not the norm. So I did a segment where it was like a surprise ingredient thing for the anchors to guess. So I made chickpea blondies, and they had to guess like what the secret ingredient was, which was obviously chickpeas. Like, that was like not normal to put in blondies. And then the second thing I made was tahini brownies, and they had to guess like what was in them. So that was my first segment, and it was definitely a dream come true for sure.
Was anyone able to guess the right?
I think Al Roker, I think he guessed, we'll have to go back and look through receipts, but I feel like he guessed that it was chickpeas in it, but I can't remember if people guessed brownies, because even tahini, like, I don't know if they really knew what that was. So yeah. I was there to just inform America and them.
That's so cool. So how did that affect your following that first segment?
Oh my God. It was actually kind of crazy, because I feel like, especially as a young person and like a young woman of color, it was so cool to be afforded that opportunity, number one. And number two, I did not have any idea like what the impact would be on like my Instagram, but like very significantly, like I think like 20,000 people probably followed me after that first segment. And I think it was cool because I had such a great relationship with the anchors off camera that it really, I think, came across on camera, because I love all of them so much, and they have always been so kind and so respectful of me and my work. And I think that's just, it was so telling of who they are as people. So I think that was like a very cool thing to be able to just be like, well, these are like people that I work with and that I love. Yeah. And that kind of energy is very, you can tell when there's like genuine feeling there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I feel like that must have made it a little less like nervous to like go up with people that you actually work with. that you
Yeah,
knew?
well, I black out. Yeah, I completely just like, I think I just couldn't remember. And I remember, and now obviously it's different because I've done so many segments. I remember like prepping so much for that first one, and I was just like, okay, like I want to like get this right, and like no. And then once you get there, you can't like control what you're gonna say, like because people are
Right.
talking to you. You're gonna just have to figure it out as you go, which I learned. But I was honestly more excited. I loved that. I actually, when I was in Berkeley, I created a food show where I would go interview
Oh,
chefs in the Mission District of San Francisco and like do this like whole little like series. So I'm not sure why I didn't connect the dots earlier, but I think I was always probably like destined to work in food media. I didn't know, but it became apparent later that this is probably what I should be doing.
you did something similar like that for the Today Show, right? Or
Oh yes, I did. Last year was probably the most similar concept to that. We did a show called How to Eat Plants, which is a completely plant-based travel and cooking show. It was the first one that has really ever been done, which was really cool. We traveled, around the US, and I got to interview different chefs and restaurateurs and business owners who are doing really unique things in the plant-based landscape, which I think is still has a bit of a stigma to it. But I don't think it's going to be that way going forward. I think there's so many insane innovations that are going on in that space. So we just wanted to highlight a few of them.
yeah. So you have that one, and then you have hashtag cooking.
Yes. And hashtag cooking was more of a straight like to camera cooking show, which was really fun too, because I got to exhibit a lot of different recipes that, are either like greatest hits or ones that I developed for the show. And yeah, that was like a really fun experience for me too. I think I love working with people and I love working on a set. And I think it's always also such a collaborative experience. Like I could not do anything without the crew and the producers. And, even though you just see me, there's so many people behind the scenes working on it. So I'm so grateful for the whole team to make, a product that we're all so proud of.
Yeah. And so are both shows on Peacock?
Yeah, so they stream on Peacock and they're on Today All Day, which is the Today Show streaming channel. So they're kind of like constantly playing. I honestly don't even know when they're slotting it in anymore. But yeah, it was a really great time.
That's amazing. So you mentioned your book deal. Can you talk a little bit about Dada Eats Loves to Cook It?
Yeah, that was like a very whirlwind year for me. I had done the segments on the Today Show and had, got introduced to an agent who thought, maybe there's a book here actually. And at that time I was 24 and I was kind of like, whoa, okay. I actually have always loved to write. It was something that I thought when I was a kid, I really wanted to be an author. Like I wanted to write like mystery novels or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. So it was really a different type of dream that I felt like I was marrying a lot of different passions of mine together. So the book is really kind of like just being in the kitchen cooking with me. I wanted to make it really personal. And I felt like if I was getting the opportunity to write a book, I really wanted to write in it. So all of the head notes are very personal. I wrote a few essays in there about different places that I had lived in my life, or places that had sort of informed my cooking, like London, like my roots in India, even California. So, it's over 100 plant-based recipes that I like to say are for everyone at your table, because I do think that when people hear things like, oh, like vegetarian or vegan or plant-based, I think it's like, oh, like that's just going to be like a plate of steamed broccoli, which, I think we've evolved a lot since I wrote the book. But at that time too, like, I think there was a lot of education to be done, for a consumer to really get behind the idea of eating a meal with no meat. And there are, eggs in the book and obviously modifications for that. But yeah, it's really just a collection of some of my favorite recipes. And I had probably 10 that were, or maybe less than 10 that I had already developed, but the rest of them I created especially for the book. So yeah, it was a labor of love for sure. I loved writing.
Yeah. 100's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. And yeah.
How did you come up with all of those? Or what inspires you when you're creating a new one?
I I like at the time was really having dreams about recipes, which I still kind of do. I know it's kind of insane.
That's really
I need
cool.
to relax. But yeah, I think it was really something that I'm really inspired by, actually creating comfort foods and things that I really love in like the Dada way, which is, like what are things that I've grown up eating that I really love, and how can I make it in a way that is plant-based, that's a little bit minimal, that can appeal to a lot of different people. So that was really my main driver behind the different types of recipes that I created. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely inspired by my heritage, inspired by places that I've been, things that I've eaten, even things that I just experiment with the kitchen that I feel like work, and combinations that I don't think I've seen before. I was really interested in that, but it was challenging and also very rewarding at the same time.
Definitely. And what are some of your favorite recipes from the book?
Oh my gosh, they're like all my children. I don't have a child, but like I'd imagine that's what it'd be like to pick. I really love my chocolate chip tahini cake. That's like a celebration cake that I make for a lot of different occasions. Actually made one yesterday for my sister's birthday, and it's a crowd pleaser. My chocolate chip cookie pie is also really great. It's something that very easy to make, and you can serve it with a scoop of ice cream on top. You can just eat it plain. And then in terms of savory, I love my avocado cream pasta. It's sort of like a pasta salad, but the sauce is really minimal. It's really just made with like olive oil, avocado, basil, garlic, very simple ingredients. And it makes this really luscious, creamy sauce that you put on pasta, and it's just delicious and always a crowd pleaser. So unless you're allergic to avocado, don't eat it. But
yeah. That sounds really good. That sounds like a dairy-free person's dream. Like creamy pasta again? That'd be amazing. So I wanted to talk a bit about your volunteer work, because you work with multiple different charities. There's God's Love, We Deliver Kitchen, the T-shirt charity, and Edible Schoolyard. How did you get involved with these?
Yeah, so I'll start with God's Love We Deliver because I've been involved with them for the longest, and I just love them so much. I had volunteered there. They're an amazing organization in New York that they basically cook and deliver medically tailored meals for people in New York who are too sick to cook for or shop for themselves. Wow. And they're just really nice, amazing people. And I had done a couple volunteer shifts there, and I just wanted to get involved. So luckily, they were kind enough to admit me to their culinary council. So I've done events with them in the past, like volunteer events. I recently, in the fall, created a recipe for their clients, a dessert recipe. So we made an apple cardamom tea cake that was delivered to clients ahead of Thanksgiving, so they can enjoy something like a little bit different. And it's all very specifically tailored. We have supervision by the nutrition department. So everything can be, healthy and tailored to the clients, which is really great. Yeah, it's such an amazing organization. And if anyone is in New York listening to this, definitely volunteer there.
That's incredible. And did you start the T-shirt charity?
Yes. So Buy This T-shirt actually was an organization I started with a couple of my friends at the start of COVID. So, at the time, especially living in New York, I felt like we were experiencing and seeing a lot of just restaurants needing so much help with the fact that they were closed, takeout operations only. There was just a lot of limitations for the hospitality industry. So we started an organization where we created merch and also partnered with a lot of different brands to sell and raise money for restaurant workers, just as a relief organization. And yeah, that was really... honestly, that really saved me living in New York during COVID at the start, because it was very dead and very quiet. So it was nice to be involved with something that felt like we were doing something good for the community.
Yeah. God, that's so cool. So you've had such an incredible career. In addition to everything we've talked about, you've also been on the Drew Barrymore show, I watched it. It was really good.
Oh, thank you.
And then you were on the Forbes 30 under 30 list, which is congratulations. You're on there with Kendall Jenner, which I think is really cool.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Of course. So, what are you hoping to accomplish next?
Oh my gosh. I feel so lucky to have created a community and have had so much help and support along the way. And I think it's the first time in my life where I just haven't really had something specific lined up. And I have some ideas of things that I want to do in the future. And I think it'll definitely involve more television and more collaboration with people that I love and really admire. So, definitely more date content, because I love creating dates, not like romantic dates, the ones that you eat. Like I love making, I love making recipes with dates. They're amazing. But yeah, just more food content, more TV. Hopefully just more involvement in the community. I actually did a couple of restaurant pop-ups in the fall where I got my community together in New York for a 2-night only dinner. So we served over 300 people, which was amazing. And I think the in real life stuff is what I would like to also do a lot more of. I think we all just really want connection and community, and we've had so much time to be like isolated away from each other. So that's definitely a goal for mine in the future.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited to see what you do next.
Thank you.
So we're coming to the end of our time, but before I let you go, we have 3 final questions that we call our Thoughtful 3, and it just kind of reflects on your journey. So as we talked about, you went to high schools in 2 different countries. You traveled to Europe alone. You moved across the country as an adult. What have these experiences of putting yourself in new situations taught you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, to control less and flow a little bit more. I definitely struggle with that as a person who loves control and wants to just have my, I just want to know, uncertainty is so scary for so many people, but I think that I've been faced with a lot of it in my life. And I think the best way and the only way to get through it is just to flow through it, because there are only so many things you can control. And if you release a little bit of it, I think it actually makes the journey a little bit easier and your head's a bit clearer, so you know where you want to go.
Amazing. And then to piggyback off of that, what advice do you have for people who find themselves in situations where they're outside of their comfort zone?
What's the worst that could happen? I always tell myself that sometimes when I'm feeling like fear is blocking me from doing something, it's what's the worst that can happen? I think also a big hurdle for a lot of people is just starting. I've experienced that before too. It's just sometimes the hardest thing you can do is just start. And once you get there and once you just take one little step forward, it actually becomes a lot easier. So I think just my advice would be to ask yourself, what is the worst case scenario you're imagining in your head? And it's usually not as bad as you think it's going to be, and just to go for it. Yeah.
Wow. I love that. And then lastly, what skills or qualities do you think have been crucial to your success?
I love people. I really do. I love to be around people, and I love to learn more about people's stories. I think being curious has been really important. And then also, I never, obviously, I think it's healthy to say no to things that you feel like you don't have the bandwidth for, and to prioritize your self-care and your mental health. I'm not saying say yes to everything, because I don't always believe that, but I definitely think I've been really open to a lot of things and have said yes to experiences. And I never feel like I am above anything. I think I will do literally anything. I love any experience. I recently just decided that I wanted to go stage in a restaurant, just because I felt like I wanted a more restaurant experience. So I literally will just go. I told the chef, I was I will polish forks in the corner. You just tell me what to do. I just wanted to be in the atmosphere of something that I hadn't experienced in a while. So I don't know. I think just putting myself into new scenarios has been really beneficial for me and fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to add that to my New Year's resolution list, because yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Everyone go follow Dada Eats on Instagram and check out your show on Peacock.
Thank you, Chelsea, for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Bye.
Bye.